Hi, this is Gautam. For today's episode of Night Owl Podcast, we're going to look at the free trade agreement which is signed between India and European Union. Now, I just want to convey one important thing. You know the feature of the podcast. We make sure that we don't beat around the bush and we exactly view points which will be relevant for your mains examination. So I just want you to stick with me till the end, and I promise you that at the end of this discussion, you'll have a comprehensive idea on not just the features of the FTA, but it is also regarding what are the other agreements which are signed between India and European Union, and also regarding what are the benefits in terms of trade analysis, and do we have issues which goes beyond trade. So with that, let me start with the present status. Now, if you look at your economic survey last year, the new one will be released few days from now. If you look at the economic survey, already the trade between India and European Union is very significant. That is, if you look at the total amount of exports and imports based on India's percentage share of exports and imports, European Union constitutes roughly 9% of the total exports which come to India. At the same time, note that down, 17.3 percentage of exports which come from India go to European Union. So already this grouping has a lot of trade going on. So signing of the FTA is definitely going to improve this particular trade relationship, primarily because the barriers will be removed. Now let's go to the main features of this FTA. Now, as part of the FTA agreement, which is expected to come into effect by early 2027, because you have 27 countries in the European Union bloc, and everyone has to, have their own internal discussions. There'll be definitely more legal issues which crop up, and all those have to be streamlined. But one way or the other, let's look at the primary commodities. So for India, you can see that after the free trade agreement, most of the tariffs are getting reduced to zero, and these are important sectors in which India has big advantages. For example, the marine sector, leather and footwear, textile and apparel, gems and jewelry, and even furniture and light and consumer goods. For these sectors, you see that for some areas, for example, marine sector, it's at 26%, but for some gems and jewelry, it's only at 4%. One way or the other, India is definitely going to have big advantages by access to the European Union market. And when it comes to European Union, for automobiles, wines, and spirits, you have a large scale reduction from 110, 150 to 10, 20, 30, or 40%. So, this is a much larger reduction on the right hand side than what you see in the left hand side. That's the first takeaway which you have to keep it in mind. Now, beyond this, it also extends into areas where European Union is stronger. For example, machines and electrical equipment, processed food, including pharmaceutical sector. Again, as I told you, these are simply the basic functions, basic fundamental points regarding products in your free trade agreement. Now let's go on to areas which goes beyond your FTA for data points for your mains examination. So first point is, based on different statistics and sources you refer, the total amount of global trade between these two markets is supposed to be 30%. At the same time, as part of the FTA, the European Union will drop tariffs on 99% of Indian exports for the 27 nation bloc. So there is a direct set of data points. Now, beyond the FTA, what else has been signed? Well, you have to realize that there is a security and defense partnership which has been signed with the European Union. And why is it significant? Well, because this is the first such framework. This type of cooperation has not really been taken up with you at a deeper level. So this is going to introduce new dimensions, because when we talk about security and defense, the agreement goes beyond your conventional security. It also talks about cyber security and multiple other dimensions on cyber terrorism. The second agreement is on mobility framework. This is associated with your services sector. As part of services, you have a lot of students. For example, reports say that roughly 2 lakh students are getting access to European Union, who are already part of it. At the same time, you have a lot of professional and business services. So, as part of the agreement, the mobility partnership, it will be much easier for students and professionals to work in European Union, to migrate there, and this is going to help in better production, at the same time better remittances for India. And third is a joint India EU comprehensive strategy from 2026 to 2030. Now, what does it entail? It is broad in scope, And if you look at the primary areas, it goes beyond trade into artificial intelligence, quantum sector, and semiconductors. It includes important knowledge exchange programs, especially on critical emerging technologies. So we are talking about including space based industry and aerospace sector. So point to be understood is beyond your reduction of tariffs in your FTA agreement, there are larger scale of cooperation in both your services sector in terms of mobility, at the same time expanding into cooperation in defense, cybersecurity, artificial intelligence. So this is slowly going to shift the framework in how India and European Union so far have been dealing with, because usually beyond trade based negotiation, you did not have a consistent strategic partnership with European Union, and this will definitely see a primary shift. Now let's go into analysis. Like, what are the pros and cons, and what are the takeaways? Important takeaways for India. See, first is, as we saw at the start, on the important industries like textile, apparel, gems and jewelry, sports goods. So all these are labor-intensive sectors, and this is going to help India's manufacturing sector. To put it in perspective, you know that India is already suffering from 50% tariffs from United States of America. We've spoken about this, this tariff dimension in the earlier episodes also. So if you look at textile and apparel exports from India, 28% of all the textile and apparel exports goes to the United States of America. So when it is shielded by 50% tariffs, it's very difficult for India to compete with the other players in the US market. So that's one important dimension. So this is a win for India. And for European Union, it is actually a bigger win. Let me put it in perspective. We'll go back to that percentages again. Look at the level of reduction which you have right now. So when I say from 110% to 10% or 150 to 30, that's a much larger reduction compared to your left hand side. So you have to understand, European Union for more than 10 years have been trying to get access for the alcohol and automobile market in India, because the population of 1.4 billion people is much larger. So this FTA definitely gives European Union significant advantages. Now what we need to understand is, has India found a way to work around them? Well, there are certain clauses which allows India to, what do you say, to work around them. Like what? For example, let's take automobile sector. Even though European Union is going to get access to automobile markets, it's not going to be easy. There are certain quotas and regulations. For example, there is more reduction of tariffs, especially for your high value automobiles. You're talking about automobiles more than 20 lakh and 25 lakhs. When it comes to the low value segment, that is we are talking about the 10 to 12 lakh segment, automobile segment market, a 4 to 6 lakh market. There are specific quotas. So it will take time for European Union to enter into the mid value and low value range. So there is no immediate threat for the automobile, the domestic automobile companies. And second thing is, the electric vehicles are not going to enter. The clause allows for a 5 year cooling period, and only after 5 years, your electric vehicles is going, electric vehicles manufactured from European Union, or the direct manufacturing competition is going to take place. So India has found a way to work around it, but again, one way or the other, you have to understand, there will always be competitive spillover. So now the domestic sector has to really improve its performance, so that it is it's ready to take on the competition from European Union. The same is true for alcohol, beverages, and wine industry. So that is with reference to the how India is trying to compensate the fact that they have reduced tariffs much higher, especially in those sectors. And third, an important takeaway is the trade and services and mobility for students and professionals. That's going to improve remittances. We've already seen it in one of the earlier points. And fourth is regarding Vietnam. Now, why Vietnam? In the last 25 years, Vietnam is one of the largest growing, one of the fastest growing economies in the world. And Vietnam concluded a free trade agreement with the European Union in 2019. And since 2019, it's been very difficult for the textile apparel industry to operate in European Union, because the Indian commodities were technically getting muscled out. Now, when this FTA comes into implementation, India will definitely get back its position or regain its position with reference to competition, at least with reference to European Union. So these are important areas of analysis. We have to look at the numbers, the exact numbers as we saw at the earliest, to see how far it is going to be beneficial. Now let's look into issues. Now these are larger dimensions which are hidden, parts of the deal. For example, European Union is one of the highly regulated markets. Now, we are not directly looking at tariff barriers, we are looking at non-tariff barriers. And even if a free trade agreement is signed, there is going to be a lot of costs for Indian players to operate in EU market based on the following regulations. For example, CBIM, I think most of you know if you're preparing for UPSC, CBIM stands for your carbon border adjustment mechanism. So the idea behind carbon border adjustment is, uh, if you have manufacture of steel or aluminum or any commodity, if it is manufacturing, if it's getting manufactured outside European Union, and if it is going to enter into the EU market, if the production process is going to be carbon intensive, then it will be subjected to additional amount of taxation. That is the primary idea. Now, why is this important? If you take steel and aluminum are important commodities which India exports into European Union. Now, when I have the CBIM mechanism, Indian products will be priced more in the European market because again, it's a non-tariff barrier, because they would say that your commodities are emitting more amount of carbon dioxide, and because of greater emissions, that should be taxed more. So that's one way of tariff, non-tariff barriers. And if you look at the second one, this regulation is supposed to kick in December 2026. So this is your European Union deforestation regulation. Deforestation regulation. Now, the idea is this is for regulation of agriculture based commodities. That is, if agricultural commodities are produced after expanding your land use into forest areas, which is a cause for deforestation, then then it can be taxed. There will be a non-tariff barrier. This is pretty difficult because this requires a lot of compliance-based rules. So if someone is trying to, export a commodity into European Union, for the agricultural product, a lot of details has to be given, as in where exactly it is produced and what is the name of the producer. Especially for a market, for a producer style in India, where large number of farmers are small and marginal, this is going to be extremely difficult. And to every single time get certification that it is done on agrarian land and not expanded into forest area, definitely is going to cost more, at least in terms of compliance for the Indian market. And lastly, this is about corporate sustainability, CSDD, corporate sustainability and due diligence. So what does this stand for? Well, this is about the entire supply chain. So if a product is exported into European Union, is the supply chain completely clean? For example, are there any human right violations? So again, this is going to improve compliance. So through a slow and phased mechanism, from 2027 to 2029, CSDD will be implemented. So you have to understand, even though India is going to get market access, it will become difficult to satisfy all the non-tariff barrier conditions to make best use of what exactly is offered by the EU. And this point we have already discussed before twice. I just want to repeat again. India already has, pardon me, India already has 80 percentage of duty-free access to the European market. So, because of the trade deal, it's natural that European Union seems to be getting more as an access to Indian market. So, there are questions raised principally by different experts. Is it really market access, or European Union is getting market access to India? And now for the last dimension, which goes beyond the trade deal. Understand that it this is going to be difficult for India. Now, why exactly? Because it's not FTA alone, but FTA plus. Keep that in mind. So, if India is going to have stronger relationship with European Union, it is going to have a difficult balancing mechanism, because towards one side we have Russia, towards the other side we have United States. Keep that in mind, that we have a long-term strategic relationship with Russia. It's not something built over a 5 or 10 year time period. It goes back to a very long time. So you have a strategic relationship. You also have a defense relationship. At the same time, you have to remember that with United States of America, we have a strong economic relationship, especially with reference to services sector. So when this is an already established relationship, and if India is going to enter into a strong agreement with European Union, then how is India going to manage certain issues? For example, take Ukraine. India will find it difficult to manage Ukrainian issue. So where exactly do we sit? For example, take the issue with reference to the tussle which is going on between United States and not European Union alone, but NATO, which is technically a larger collaboration, a military alliance, and this is an economic. It's a common market, but one way or the other, you should know that both groups have similar set of countries. A large number of countries are present in both. So how is India going to handle this hostility? And if India is going to have an FTA plus agreement with European Union, what is going to happen for the existing economic relationship with USA? Are we going to go for a new type of FTA? If we are going for an FTA, what is going to be the structure? What about countries like Canada, Australia? So those are many questions which are going to pop up. So that is the dimension on beyond the trade deal. And last and important point is regarding what happened after 2005. You know, after 2005, that is, we are talking about the India United States nuclear deal. You know, this was hailed as a strategic shift. And after the nuclear deal, if you look at strategic changes in the last 20 years, it has mostly been there on the economic front. So many political experts are questioning the idea that even if you have something historic, it's not necessary that over a 20-year time period or the next 15 years, it will translate into a strategic partnership. Because with the case of United States, there were considerable limits on how exactly the relationship could expand. So we have to wait and see on how this proposed alliance, proposed FTA and FTA plus will help India to move forward. So to wrap up, we have to understand that it's not only about the a free trade agreement, but there are dimensions which go beyond the free trade, and you also have to look at it objectively. It's not only about benefits which have occurred to India, but also about benefits which have acquired to European Union. At the same time, it is not going to be restricted to manufacturing, but also for services related to professional services, educational services, financial services. All those are going to be slowly, and environmental services. We are going to have, a tariff reduction, and finally, it goes beyond trade. It is going to spill over into strategy. At the same time, it is going to spill over into tough decisions for India. Okay, including the call on Ukraine. So as I told you before, thanks for sticking till the end of the video. As I told you before, uh, we just want to make sure that you get a crisp and a comprehensive idea of what exactly the trade deal is, so that now when you prepare for your mains, you're ready for both your 10 marker and 15 marker. So usually Night Owl episode is on Mondays, and since this was important segment of current affairs, I decided I'll drop the video today. So thanks for your time. Hopefully this was useful. So this is Gautam signing off. See you next Monday. Bye for now.